Hi everyone. This is my first video that I've had to make, so hopefully you guys stick with me and I'm not gonna bore you to death. So my term paper for food fermentations at WSU was over fermented fish, more specifically anchovies. Now I've never tried anchovies, so where the idea of doing fermented fish came from, I have really just always had a curiosity. I've used to see them in TV shows, movies. People put them on pizza out here where I live in Chicago, so I figured I might as well check it out, see what else I can learn from it. So kind of going over some main things from my presentation. There's all kinds of fermented fish products, as far as like fish sauce, or some people in other countries eat surströmming. I believe this is in Denmark that it's pretty popular. In Holland, they have a slightly fermented Baltic herring that they will eat raw on pretty much anything. It's usually eaten outside because of the smell, but these people really enjoy that type of dish. It's not necessarily a new idea. The ancient Romans were among the first that cultivated fish sauce and fish products. A popular thing that they had was called liquamen or garum, and it's been shown to be used all the way from 700 BC. What they did, they got small pelagic fish and they kept it in a barrel with salt water for 2 to 3 months in the sun, and then they let that ferment, and afterwards they let the liquid strain off and they bottled that. The rest of the fish wasn't used. This is pretty similar to what happens with modern day anchovies, except that we actually keep the anchovy, the actual fish fillet, rather than tossing out the sauce. We do still make fish sauce today, and it's pretty much the same process that I discussed right now, and they use all different types of fish, not just anchovies. They'll use sardines, basically anything smaller than your hand they use for that. It used to be eaten by all classes of people just because of the protein-rich sources. I mean, they had a lot of amino acids in these, a lot of different vitamins. So it's kind of a healthy product as far as people getting their nutritional content out of it. Anchovies, they are mainly eaten as fillets in the U.S. They could be oil packed or salt packed, just depending on the fermentation process or how they're packaged and canned, specifically how long they plan on being on a shelf. Anchovies that are going to be eaten more readily, more available, they tend to salt pack them, and they'll rinse them off to get some of the excess salt off, and mainly to keep sorry, lost my space there. They mainly rinse the excess salt off so that they could eat them on bread or with cheese or other various food groups. There's mainly 5 populations of anchovies. They all have some variation in their genetics, but the southwest of South America, the west coast by California, south of Australia, east of Japan, and west of Europe, I believe, are all 5 of the anchovy populations, and they all tend to stay around river deltas, so the right there where freshwater and saltwater mix, that's kind of where these populations sit. Their main food group is plankton and krill and things like that. It's very small microorganisms that they can feed off of. But you can find them pretty much all over the world, and different people prepare them in certain ways, but they're all enjoyed. As far as their yield per catch, it's pretty steady throughout the years, other than there's some slight drops depending on overfishing, or sometimes warmer current or colder currents will affect their population and reduce their amount of fertility and the type of spawning that they have. Also, the rise and fall of ocean levels affect their population size. So it's pretty important that we do our part. I mean, a lot of this is controlled by the ocean levels and fluctuation of currents, but if should be on our part to not overfish as well. It's just going to add more problems if we overfish these types of animals. I do know that they do some commercial farming of these fish to try to preserve that population, but it's also and it takes an effect on the ecosystem by doing that, so we try to keep that kind of in mind when we do this. As far as making anchovies, it's a lot of table salt or sea salt to try and reduce the types of bacteria that you want to grow in there. You definitely want a halo-tolerant type of bacteria to grow, then, especially with the fermentation happening at room temperature. So with it happening at room temperature, so many different types of bacteria can grow, and you want to control which ones. Some lactic acid bacteria are involved in the fermentation, and some of these are commonly seen in dairy, very similar bacteria. And so as far as their health effects, it's not specifically studied for anchovies, but it can be assumed that the bacteria that help in dairy with digestive health and things like that could have the same effect with the anchovies. But like I said, it's not established. People don't exactly... There haven't been any recent studies about the effect of anchovies on gut health. So as far as how these bacteria develop, starter cultures aren't really a common use in this type of fermentation. They really just deal with the enzymes that are found in the digestive tract of the fish. So these fish are gutted before they begin their fermentation process, but whatever enzymes are left over are the ones that they use to break down some of the internal membranes and the muscle cells in the fish. An increase in the salt concentration definitely affects how the enzymes work. So the more salt that you have in your product, the enzymes are less effective. So there's a perfect balance that you try to stick with. If you don't have enough salt, like I said, other bacteria that are less halo tolerant will start to grow, and that could eventually lead to a food outbreak. So mainly you're trying to hit that sweet spot, so the bacteria that you want are the ones that grow. So mainly your species of bacteria that you're worried about are Vibrio. Vibrio can cause a really bad foodborne disease that has a high lethal rate. Something that they also try to watch out for is the amount of histamines that are produced in fermented fish. Histamines can cause problems in your health system as far as bringing along illness. So they're trying to limit the amount of dangerous bacteria in these fish, which is probably why the sorry, I think waking up my roommate, which is probably why the popularity of this fish is still kind of low, and it mainly sticks to home markets. If you had a better fermentation process, a more stable fermentation process where we could control the bacteria that we're putting in, more than likely this industry would grow quite a bit. A lot of communities already rely on this type of product as a main source of income. But if they were able to mass produce and sell to countries and be able to produce global commerce, I really believe that we could see some extensive profit from this. Like I said, this has been done for a long time. It's not exactly a new idea as far as fermenting fish, but the amount and how we do it has become a lot better, especially with the advance of technology. So I guess the main priorities of producing a fermented anchovy industry and helping it grow would be to have a stable source of anchovy populations, so us preventing from overfishing, and developing starter cultures that could prevent pathogen growth. But so that's all I have for my paper. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I wanted to get some anchovies and try them for the first time on this video, but where I lived would not even sell them. I had to drive 3-4 hours just to find them or get them, so I ended up not making the trip to try them out. But when I do try them, I'll make sure to give them a good rating or not. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you've helped and learned something. Please don't be too harsh on the critics and comments. Thanks.